YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing my first mock draft of the 2021 NFL draft. And I know it's a little early considering the draft position has not even been decided yet, and we could be seeing a lot of shifts. There's a lot of trades that are going to be done, and most importantly, a lot of the big prospects are going to be taken in the first round. Some of them, they aren't even big names yet. And that is the biggest issue of doing a mock draft so early. The biggest example is Kyler when he went number 1 overall. He was the consensus first pick, but until like February, March, or late March, no one was really like, okay, yeah, this guy's going to go first overall. Everyone was going Nick Bosa. But still think it's a good idea to start to know the prospects, team needs, and that's why I'm going to do this mock draft so early. So let's get right into the video. And by the way, the draft order is if the season ended today. I'm not doing like projections or anything. Just makes it easier this way. So let's start. And with the first pick, there is the New York Jets. This is going to be the easiest pick in the entire draft. I just don't see them going anywhere other than taking Trevor Lawrence, the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck probably. No brainer here. You're probably going to have to trade Sam Darnold. Like, I actually think Sam Darnold's not a bad QB, but he has regressed since entering the league. His coaches has not been great. His team around him has not been great either. If a team like Indianapolis, like with Frank Reich, or Pittsburgh, who has a very good defense, was able to trade for him, maybe they give up a second or first round pick, I feel like that would really rejuvenate his career. So I have the Jets taking Trevor Lawrence, and with the second pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a little bit more of an interesting pick to say. A little bit more options they have, but I have them taking Justin Fields. Penei Sewell was in consideration for me, but I just think this team needs a quarterback bad. The Minshew experiment didn't turn out, and right now they're rolling with like Jake Luton and Mike Glennon, and that's not the answer for the future. Actually, I think Justin Fields with his young team around him would actually be really good, fun to watch, and it would lead a new era of Jacksonville, assuming they fire their head coach, Doug Marrone. He needs to go. I do think they get rid of him at the end of the season. And if they are able to get maybe like an Eric Bieniemy as head coach, that would make it really interesting for them. Like Justin Fields with Eric Bieniemy as his head coach, that would be great for his career. But then with the third pick, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, who I don't think have a chance to win a game in the near future. I have them taking Penei Sewell, the best tackle prospect in this draft. He was Justin Herbert's starting tackle when he went to Oregon. And this is, if the Bengals do not take an offensive lineman, they're just trying to ruin Joe Burrow's career. There's no other way around it. This team needs to get offensive line help. Taking Sewell would be a great start. He can be your franchise tackle. That would really help them. You don't want to see Burrow getting injuries like this. Never want to see your star quarterback getting hurt like that. Then with the fourth pick, we have the Dallas Cowboys. This is an interesting team, but I do think they're going to be taking secondary early in the draft just because the rest of your team isn't even that bad. They have a good O-line. Offense is very well-rounded. Defense is interesting. They might take an edge rusher like Gregory Rousseau. Maybe they take Micah Parsons at linebacker. Not sure about that. But I feel like they will be taking a corner. And right now there is kind of a debate for who is the number 1 corner in this year's draft. But so far, I think the number 1 corner is Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I believe it's pronounced Surtain. His father played in the league. It was pronounced like that. I don't think it would change. But I think he'd be a great corner for them. This team definitely needs help on the defense. It's just miserable. The Washington football team put up 41 on them, and you cannot have that dreadful offense do that to you. So now we move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. And this team is another team that could use offensive linemen. They're an interesting team because they're pretty good at their skill position. They have a good QB. They have Justin Herbert. Their halfback situation is looking good, but their offensive line could definitely use some work for sure. I feel like none of their positions on that offensive line are really safe, and I think they end up taking tackle here. I'm going to have him taking Samuel Cosmi. Right now, he's the second best tackle in my opinion. It may end up being Alex Leatherwood. I'm not sure. It depends on how the later in the season the pre-draft process works out. But right now, I have him taking Samuel Cosmi, tackle out of Texas. This team definitely is another team that needs offensive line, but it's not as bad as like a team like Cincinnati or even Miami. But just getting an offensive line would just really help the Chargers. Also, getting rid of Anthony Lynn would probably help them more than anything else, too. And now we have the Philadelphia Eagles, the worst team with expectations so far. They're picking 6. This team needs a wide receiver. I'm not wasting any of our time. It's going to be Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the best wide receiver prospect in the draft. No debate. Maybe the best since Amari Cooper? Not sure. Probably better. Coming out of LSU, he was the number 1 wide receiver in the historic offense last season with Joe Burrow. And I just don't see a way that Jamar Chase isn't the first wide receiver taken. It does not make sense. Just well-rounded. Maybe Miami, if they take like DeVonta Smith or Jalen Waddle, the connection with Tua. But that still doesn't make sense to me. Jamar Chase, easily the best in this draft. Now we have Carolina. Carolina's defense is kind of just their biggest need overall. That entire defense. But I feel like that linebacker position is just a huge weakness. Just watch them play. That position is always getting destroyed. I'm going to have him taking Micah Parsons out of Penn State. I think he's the best linebacker in this class. Some people will say, some people would have Dylan Moses. I just don't think he is better than, I don't think he's better than Micah Parsons. Just that simple. And now we move on to the Washington football team. After them, I'm going to go a little quicker. This is the last team, which I think it's like really interesting what they do. Of course, other teams, it's going to be interesting no matter what. But the Washington football team needs a quarterback. Dwayne Haskins is not the answer, nor is Alex Smith. But what Alex Smith has done is really phenomenal. But I don't think he can be their franchise quarterback. There are a few quarterbacks on the board, and the main ones are actually Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. And here's where it gets really interesting. I actually think Zach Wilson is better than Trey Lance. Not sure how many people agree with me there, but I'm definitely a bigger fan of Zach Wilson out of BYU. Just better fan of his processor, his decision-making compared to Trey Lance. But I definitely think Trey Lance has the biggest upside of the two, or after Fields and Trevor Lawrence, he has the biggest upside. And I just think that the Washington football team needs someone like Trey Lance. I think he can do more with nothing, and Zach Wilson will need a little bit of a better team around him if you want him playing ASAP. And I feel like the Washington football team could kind of be a playoff contender-ish with the terrible division they're in. Would be interesting. But now we have the Detroit Lions here. And the Lions have a lot of needs, but I think they're going to end up taking a corner here. Right now, it looks like they need corner. And that corner I'm going to have going off the board is Shaun Wade. They took an Ohio State corner last year, I believe, in Jeffrey Okudah. He's been not that great so far, but I believe a corner is this team's biggest need. Right now, they had like Desmond Trufant before he got hurt. They just need more cornerback depth. And with Matt Patricia being fired, they're going to have a whole new coach, and that's really going to affect who they pick here. A lot of first-time coaches, etc., they do end up picking or making safer picks. Like, we've seen Christian Wilkins go to Miami. We saw last year, Malcolm Brown. Derek Brown went to the Panthers at like 8 or something, instead of picking someone much more high-risk, high-upside, like Isaiah Simmons. So, those are my thoughts on that pick. And now we have the Atlanta Falcons. This team needs edge rush, and I'm going to have them going with Gregory Rousseau, best edge rusher in the class. I just don't see him going top 5. QB is just such a big need, and offensive line of the teams picking early in this draft. Of course, we could use edge rush, but when you need QB and tackle, you just have to draft those positions. So, Now we have the Miami Dolphins picking with the Texans pick, and I'm going to have them taking Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. He did have that big injury. That is a concern for them, but I do see the Dolphins taking an Alabama wide receiver here, while it be him or DeVonta Smith. This team does need offensive line and receiver help, and here they address one of their biggest needs with a wide receiver. Now we have the Denver Broncos picking, and I'm going to have them taking Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech. Since they've lost Chris Harris at the cornerback position, there has been a big hole there, glaring weakness. And I just think when this team was contending for Super Bowls, when they won their Super Bowl, they won off the defense, and they need that corner they can trust, and I believe Caleb Farley would be perfect for that. Now we have the Chicago Bears picking, and this is where I see Zach Wilson going. If Zach Wilson goes to the Bears, I don't care who else the Bears take in the draft, they won the draft. I'm very high on Zach Wilson, and the Bears desperately need a quarterback. They've wasted this defense for so long. If they can get Zach Wilson, and maybe in 2 or 3 years, I do think this team could be contending. Would it be too late? I'm not sure, but we'll have to see then. Now we see the Minnesota Vikings picking right now, and their offensive line is really the biggest weaknesses on the team, and their interior defensive line. I am going to have them reaching a little here and taking Jay Tufele out of USC. He's an interior defensive line prospect, but I do see him rising on the boards a little. He's a very good player, and I just think he'd be great for this team. Now we have the New England Patriots picking, and I'm going to go with the explosive tight end out of Florida, Kyle Pitts. He's been going crazy in Florida. While I'm not that high on Kyle Trask, I'm super high on Kyle Pitts. I believe that he is a top 15 pick, and the Patriots take him here at number 15. Now the San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. I have them taking, let's see. They do need interior offensive line. I'm going to have them go Wyatt Davis. He's at Ohio State. They're depth in offensive line. They do need better offensive linemen on the team. It's not been great so far for them. It would really help their run game. And when they made the Super Bowl last year, it was because of their run game. Now we have the Oakland Raiders picking, and I'm going to have them going Kwity Paye out of Michigan. He is a very big riser so far in the draft process, to say. In the regular season, he's definitely gone up in his stock, and I could end up seeing him being like 14 or so. I do think edge rusher after pick 10 is going to be more of a highly sought after position, but in the early stage of the draft, I don't see many going. Now we have the Baltimore Ravens, and I don't care which receiver they pick, they just need a receiver, and I'm going to have him taking Rashod Bateman out of Minnesota. He's shown great signs, and I just think he could be the number one receiver they need. Marquise Brown is a deep threat. He's not Tyreek Hill by any stretch of imagination. Don't think you can rely on him. Now I have the Giants taking Joseph Ossai out of Texas. He's an edge. Their defense is the strength of this team, but I just don't see them addressing any of their offensive issues so early in the draft. Considering if this defense added an edge rusher, if this team doesn't win their division, I think that's actually better for them in the long run. They'd be able to get like a top 10 pick. They could maybe get one of the better edge rushers in the class, Kwity Paye, Gregory Rousseau. That would really help this team. Now we have the Arizona Cardinals picking, and I'm going to have them go Asante Samuel Jr., I believe. Yes, he's going to be going to the Cardinals right here. And their biggest need is corner. I don't know if they take him or if they end up going offensive line, but this team definitely needs help in the corner department. We saw what happened to Patrick Peterson when he matched against DK Metcalf. The stats do not tell the full story in that matchup. Now we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picking, and we see DeVonta Smith falling. We see Travis Etienne here, or Tenen, not sure how to pronounce it yet, but I do think this team is going to end up taking offensive line or maybe a defensive starter that could play right away. And I see that lineman being Rashawn Slater. This team has to go all in for next year. I assume Brady is not going to retire next season, but they have to go all in. They have to at least get a ring with Brady. That should be their thinking. And if they win, I don't think taking a win now player in like 5 years looking back, you would be like, what the heck were they doing? If you win a ring, no one's going to question it. Now we have the Miami Dolphins picking here. I'm going to have them going Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. I just think this team needs offensive line. It's not the greatest offensive line. I think it's a bottom 5 unit. Many people are impressed by it. I'm not impressed, frankly. And you need good offensive line if you want to win in the NFL. I think the most important positional groups in the NFL are QB, offensive line, and edge rush. Maybe in that order, edge rush and offensive line are interchangeable probably. But you need a good offensive line to win. And now we have Indianapolis Colts picking at 23. And this is where I have DeVonta Smith going. T.Y. Hilton is not that great. He's been alright so far this season, but you'd hope for more. Especially considering the amount we're paying him. And they just need a new number 1 player. Number 1 wide receiver. And DeVonta Smith could fill that role. And especially if they could trade for a QB, like a Sam Darnold, then this would be a very good team. If Phillip Rivers doesn't retire, obviously. Now we have the Cleveland Browns picking, and here I have them taking Alabama linebacker Dylan Moses. 24 might be a little late for him, but I think this is a perfect spot. If he could, he'd be almost a perfect fit just plugging him in here in Cleveland. Definitely would be interesting to see, and I think would be pretty good for them. Now with the 25th pick, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars picking Jalen Mayfield. This is obviously from the Rams trade, I believe, for Jalen Ramsey. So they're able to get Jalen Mayfield, tackle prospect. This team does need offensive line help. And getting Justin Fields, getting him an offensive lineman to join him on his way to Jacksonville, that would be pretty good for him. Now we have the New York Jets picking. And they are an interesting team. Once you get past the obvious need at quarterback, it's pretty interesting which way the organization would want to go picking. I'm going to have them going J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. Pretty good cornerback prospect. And this team does need cornerback. So I think that'd be pretty good for them. And now the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. And the bigger needs are kind of like mixed around. Maybe we could use another wide receiver, interior defensive line, maybe a tackle would help, edge rusher. But this team does need edge rush. And I'm going to have them going Aidan Hutchinson out of Michigan. Best edge on the board right now. I do think another edge rusher is going to emerge in the draft process as like that late first round player, which probably would be a good pick for Tennessee. Now we have the Buffalo Bills on the clock, picking 28, near the end of the draft. And I'm going to have them going with Eric Stokes at cornerback. I've had a lot of corners go off the board recently. Well, 2 in the last 3 picks, but more corners drafted in this draft compared to others. And I just think Eric Stokes, this team does probably need another corner. Obviously, Tre'Davious White, one of the best corners in the league. You're number 1. You're set there. He could use a little bit more help. But if they're able to just get a solid pick here, this team could be... This is honestly a Super Bowl pick for next year. The Buffalo Bills, I think they should be going very aggressive for next season while they still have Josh Allen on cheap money. That rookie contract is so valuable in the NFL. You have to go for titles when you can... pay your quarterbacks very little. Just how it is. And now we have the Green Bay Packers on the clock. And I'm going to have them go wide receiver. This is a reach right now. I'm going to have them go Chris Olave. This team needs to get Aaron Rodgers a real number 2. You can say, Mark Scantling. But he's just not the player you'd want. He very inconsistent. Just get Aaron Rodgers, a consistent player. this team he could win you a Super Bowl if you just gave him the help that other teams give their quarterbacks. It's just crazy to think how the Packers GM's front office are just refusing to get him any help. It's crazy. They're not very aggressive when it comes to trades or the draft in that matter. But that's that. Now we have 3 more picks in the draft: the Chiefs, Saints, and the Steelers. And I'm going to have the Chiefs going with Liam Eschenberg. Mitchell Schwartz is getting on the older side, and you probably want to draft his replacement soon, or at least a tackle prospect you can develop. It's always good to have backup, even if you have solid backup offensive linemen. It's really good insurance if anyone gets hurt. Considering if you lose an offensive lineman to injury, that can be a really big loss. And by the way, it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling on the Packers. Just couldn't get his name out. And now the Saints are picking. They are a more interesting team. And I'm going to go... Let's make this draft interesting. We'll say Drew Brees retires, and the Saints go with Mac Jones out of Alabama. I am currently more high on Mac Jones than Kyle Trask, so that's why I have him going here. That might change soon, considering Trask has been doing pretty good. Mac Jones isn't doing bad either. So now we have the final pick of the first round, and I'm going to have another Alabama player going with Alex Leatherwood. The Steelers could use another tackle, and with Big Ben getting older, he might even retire. Just wouldn't be bad to stack up on that position, get him more help for maybe a final run next year. His final run could be this year too. We don't know for sure. But that was my first mock draft. Let me know what your thoughts are on it and what you would have done differently, what picks you agree with, what you disagree with. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. Make sure to like and subscribe.